Hello everyone, a very good afternoon. I, Roshni Sheikh, moderator for today's global online conference. Impact of the COVID-19 crisis on the global economy and other sectors worldwide. Hosted by Vidya Vikas Mandal, Sri Damodar College of Commerce and Economics, Goa, India. Today at electronic platform Zoom. I welcome you all to this global online conference. Today we have two renowned, eminent, and international resource persons. Honorable Emirate Professor Dr. Chunche Langsfang from University Perth Campus, Australia.
Hello.
Now I request Ms. Sheikh, Assistant Professor of Damodar College, Goa, to introduce Honorable Dr. Chunche Langsfang.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, ma'am. Before that, Principal of Damodar College has to welcome the two resource persons.
Okay, sir.
Calling on Ma'am Preeta to please welcome the two guests.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rodney. A good day and a very warm welcome to our honorable valedictory speakers for the valedictory session, Professor Emeritus Dr. Chunche Langsfang and Mr. Segun Solomon. We had an excellent inaugural session on the 29th with two very renowned speakers, Dr. Sami Khan and Dr. G. Venkateshwara. That was on the first day. There were, on the second day, that was yesterday, we had very informative sessions by good resource persons. One was Dr. Anuradha Jain, who spoke about the larger macroeconomic implications. And we had one by Ms. Sindhu Sribhavan, who spoke about what happens to people, what happens to individuals during lockdown and social isolation, etc. This was followed by about 12 paper presentations. The world is now beginning to ease the lockdown, ease restrictions, and economic activity is set to resume. The pain of the lockdown has been felt the most by the usual fall guys, the poorer sections of society, the daily wage earners, contract labor, small businesses, self-employed people in the unorganized sector. Many of these may not even survive the crisis. Governments all over the country are announcing stimulus packages. This is a combination of fiscal measures and the central banks are announcing monetary measures. For example, governments are announcing enhanced expenditures, tax rebates, tax deferrals, whereas central banks are announcing moratoriums on loans and easier lending norms. We can only hope that economies across the world respond to these packages, which again is going to depend upon the business climate, the economic climate in those countries. One thing on which we all agree is that the world will not be the same again, that there will be new ways of doing business, new social norms, changed lifestyles. So we look forward to hearing from our distinguished valedictory speakers. And I'm sure that their presentations will give us better insights into the problems facing the world and how the world will recover and whether it will recover sooner or later. We hope to hear from you, sir, and welcome to this global online conference being organized by the Sri Damodar College of Commerce and Economics, Margao, Goa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request Ms. Marjina Sheikh to introduce Honorable Dr. Chunche Langsfang.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleased to introduce the speaker for the Honorable Emeritus Professor Chair Langsfang, nominated candidate and director-elect, immediate past chair of IEEE New Initiative Committee, chair of IEE Region 10 Educational Activities Committee. Dr. Lenz was trained and worked as a marine radio and electronic officer in Hong Kong during the 70s. He graduated with a BSc degree with first class honors in maritime studies in the year 1981 and a Master of Engineering degree in System Test Technology in the year 1982 from the University of Wales. His PhD did the University of Australia with thesis on artificial intelligence and power system engineering. He has taught at Singapore Polytechnic, Curtin University, and Murdoch University, where he was appointed Emeritus Professor in 2015. His roles have included Associate Dean of Research, Postgraduate Research Director, and Director of the Center for Enterprise Collaborative in Innovative Systems. He has supervised to completion of over 31 doctoral theses and published over 330 academic articles. His contributions can be viewed at IEEE, Explore, ResearchGate, Google Scholar, etc. Mr. Lenz has been a dedicated volunteer for the IEEE for over 25 years in various positions in the chapter, WA section, Australia Council, and the Region 10 Executive Committee. Sir Lenz continues to dedicate his time for research and supervision of postgraduate students, and his motto is learning with no boundary. I welcome you, sir, and request you to take over the session.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, and also thank you very much for the invitation to your 3-day seminar. I wonder, can I share my screen? So can you enable me to share my screen? Because right now my screen has been disabled.
Yes, sir. Now I request you to deliver your speech and address our gathering.
Yeah, so can I share my screen so that I can show the slides?
Yes, yes, sir. You can share your screen.
Yeah, it's not showing. I share the screen and say, well, the host is able to attend the screen sharing. So please enable my screen. Yeah, sorry for the delay. Yes, the screen is still.
So is your screen enabled now?
No, I tried to press the button for the share screen and it tells me, okay, they say that, let me try again this time. Yes, I think this one is better now. Just give me a minute
Yes, sir.
so that I can set it up. Okay. Just give me a minute.
Yes, sir.
So is it sharing now?
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay then. All right, in that case, I just take off my video so that you can concentrate on the screen. Okay, once again, thank you very much for the invitation. And thank you for the very nice introductions of my background. And I also heard that you have a very successful 2 days in the past, and I'm really honored and a pleasure to be able to be among my colleagues to share on tonight, on this evening session. I have chosen my title. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, COVID-19. So although I'm not really going in details, well, because I believe all of us have been affected quite dramatically over the last 2 to 3 months. But I just want to share some of the observation we have seen for the best of times and the worst of times. And then I'll lead on to IEEE. So in case that, well, among the audience, you're not too familiar with us, well, IEEE stands for Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. So well, we do have our response to the COVID-19 crisis. And I believe that we are able to equip our members and also the community to come up and also be more adaptive for the challenges to come. So I acknowledge for the invitation by Dr. Anwar. the chief mentor of foundations of the education and life skills. And the agenda for today, I just have a quick introduction of myself and where I come from, and then look some of the snapshot. Well, talk about the work times and also some of the good story coming out from the times. And then I will highlight the institution. And I believe that, well, we are preparing our member community that we are able to meet not only just today's challenge, also in times to come as well. And then I have a summary, and I hope it's going to encourage the audience. So you can search my background, apart from what you have heard just now. Well, you just simply search profile Murdoch University Lens Fund, and then you have a standardized, write-up what I have been doing in the university and also my academic output, etc. Well, I'm located in Perth, Western Australia. And well, as you can see, I understand you're from Goa, so on the West Coast. So Goa is one of the cities I have been looking forward to visit one day, although I've been to other part of India, like Cochin, like Madras or Chennai, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Gujarat, so a number of places.
Excuse me, sir. Please
Yes.
can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Sir, actually we can't see you.
Sorry.
So, sir, you're not visible on your Zoom app. So please can you just maximize your screen?
Optimize my screen. So this one is the full screen size. Is it quite okay?
Sir, that is okay, but actually we can't see you. You're not visible on the screen.
Okay. So I'm not too sure how am I going to optimize it.
Sir, please, sir, you can maximize your screen.
You mean want me to be smaller?
Yes, sir.
So if I'm using this one, will it be any good? If I'm using the slideshow now, is it any good?
Sir, you're not visible.
Is it quite okay now?
Yeah.
Yes?
Okay, fine, sir, you can speak.
Okay then. So I'm talking about that. Well, I'm from the west coast of Australia, and my university located in the southern part of the Perth. And well, you have already quite quickly gone through my background, so I'm not going to repeat this again in here. And well, my output, you can take a look in terms of my academic interest and also research area from our university research repository, and it's got a list of the collection of the title and some of the paper actually is also there as well. And then I also have a 31 PhD student. I have the honor and pleasure, well, to supervise them to completion. Well, all the theses are available online. And also you can take a look at my output from the public domain web pages like Google Scholar, research page, etc. Okay, coming back to the beginning of the talk today, as you can see, I have used the phrases from a famous book from Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Well, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. To a certain extent, what we are going through, to me, that is a reflection of these two different extremes. So the question is, how are we going to cope with it and how are we going to face the future? So if I take a look at some of these data talking about the worst of times, well, this is the data I get this from yesterday, that the confirmed cases are over 6 million, well, close to 400,000 deaths. And but it's good news, we still have a lot of recovery as well. In USA now is the #1 country being affected. Well, close to 1.8 million confirmed cases, over 100,000 people pass away. And then well, in India, yourself, I can see you have the figures, it's around 175,000 and close to 5,000 deaths. So all this is really quite unnecessary. Well, if you consider it could have been better handled. But nevertheless, well, there's no point talking about the spilled milk. So things have already done and passed. So we had to take a look at the future. And then looking at from my career and discipline. So as you can see, well, from my background, I have spent close to 40 years in the academic. So this is really one of the major effect, a sudden change in a couple of months, as far as Australian academics are concerned. And not only that, it's already all over the world. And this is an article from the Nature Index. You talk about the whole next generation of scientists is being at risk. You talk about, well, a lot of the funding applications, a lot of the grants had to be extended. And also a lot of the postgraduate students, the study are being affected. Well, even for our students, for example, well, a lot of them, they have gone home, a lot of them, they are not able to come over. The worst of all is a lot of them, they can't even conduct the experiments, especially due to the social distancing. They're not allowed to come onto the campus. And then for some of those that are dealing with species, animals, and all things, well, you can imagine it's a major, major problem for them. And not only that, well, in terms of the financial effect of it because of this disruption. So looking at this data, well, in Australia, the higher education industry body, Universities Australia, estimate the sector where we lose around $2 billion and $3 billion in the revenue, between 2 to 3 billion US dollars. And they're putting 21,000 full-time job in jeopardy. And I know that some university that's already talking about, a couple hundred of jobs are being lost. And also in London, they're talking about UK university, around 2 billion, and also 30,000 of the job are at risk as well. And then another article called Economic Health. So it's going to affect the disruption of the manufacturing output, the foreign travel, and consumer demands. Well, even though we see that it's gradually reducing the lockdown, etc. But some of the sectors we can see there's going to be a major effect on them. Say, for example, like travel, like holidays, cruise lines is one of the major being affected. So this is going to affect. Is it going to be bounce back? Yes. Well, we always believe there's a better tomorrow. But if you take a look in terms of the overall figures, they talk about expecting the global GDP is going to be 4 to 4% below baseline, and UK is around 14%, and USA is around 10%. In Australia itself, well, we are now looking at the outlook. Well, 75%. Well, this is the figures show that within 1 month, 3 months, and a year. Well, maybe you take up to a year, but still only 1/3 of them are thinking that it will get better. But on the other hand, well, looking at the get worse, the sentiment is 78% within 1 month, they still continue to see the deterioration, and 71% after 3 months, and hopefully maybe still half. Well, the business confidence and still pessimistic. Well, after 1 year. Well, this is the photo of our treasurer, and then you're looking at our Australia deficit, it's going to be $10 billion, higher than the forecast in December. And then you're looking at the 2019 budget, looking black in the back, we're going to take some time. So this is quite obvious. Looking at all this data, you're talking about the life have lost, you're talking about, the job lost, and also looking at the government financial handling is going to be quite a big challenge for them. On the other hand, we may also consider it's the best of time. There's some of this interesting story that comes up. This is the one coming from Singapore. They listed some of this feel-good story. What are they? Well, they say the Italian, the canals, featuring the jellyfish, whereby they haven't seen that for a long time because of the lockdown and also the lack of tourists. Well, Mumbai, they're looking at the flamingo, taking over. 100,000 flamingos are enjoying the perks of a human-free environment, as reported by Time. In Thailand, the turtle growth. So again, the animal come out to play and repopulate. And then in Wales, the goats take over the empty street. So you can see that on the other hand, the nature is really having a breathing space, and also even the wildlife, they're able to enjoy it, sharing the environment all together, all over again. And take a look at the other one. Well, the pandemic side effects offer a glimpse of alternative future on Earth Day 2020. You're talking about in Venice, a popular tourist place, and then now they see that the water becomes so clear. Because you don't have a lot of tourists and also the motorboats around it. Looking at the air quality, And looking at China, well, you can see the air quality from January to February because of lockdown, certainly drop of the NO2 levels. And there's another one looking at the NO2 levels after the lockdown and then back to work, it's beginning to climb up again. And then on the whole, it's still less than before. Well, even India, I also seen quite a couple of posts on Facebook, where people are so happy that able to see the peak of Himalayas. Well, after many, many years, because of now the pollution has been reduced. So on the other hand, we can see that now suddenly the world realized that, we are not really facing a doom and gloom. But on the other hand, the Earth is having a breathing space. And we're able to see what we're supposed to see. So now, we look at the two aspects. We've seen the worst, we've seen the best. Then what is IEEE doing with that? So I'm speaking, as a longtime member of this institute of electrical electronics engineers. Well, we are the largest technical professional organization. We have over 400,000 members worldwide. And our tagline is advancing technology for humanity. Well, we do believe that it's go hand in hand with technology. We're able to make the world a better place. IEEE, the members are spread all over the world and subdivided into 10 regions. So we are located in the Asia Pacific region, we call region 10. So that's why you heard at the beginning, I have the honor being nominated as one of the director elect. So I'm hoping end of the year, I have a chance to gain the trust of the members. So we have around 1/3 of the overall members, over 140,000 or so, within the Asia Pacific regions. And then the region 8 is the Europe, Africa, and the Middle East region. And then the South, Latin America, the South America, but plus the Mexico and the Mid-America itself. Well, region 1 to 6 altogether under US8. Of course, this is because of historic reason, but they make up, close to around 50% of the overall membership. And then the region 7 is Canada. Within Asia Pacific region.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
Sir, I think your screen is stuck. It's not going forward.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sir, your screen is stuck. It's not going forward.
Going forward. Hang on a second, okay? Hang on a second.
Your web camera is disabled. Please make it enable. We are unable to see you, sir.
We are unable to see you, sir. And even your screen is stuck.
I apologize because I have a visitors because I'm expecting 5 o'clock. So is it quite okay now? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me continue on this one. So I will very quickly go through it. As I said, I was expecting only half an hour and then we started late.
Yes,
okay, so this is an overview of the spread of the sections and the countries. Now looking at India itself, India, you have an India Council, and altogether you have 12 different sections at different locations within your country. And some of these, they have the subsections as well. So now looking at the specific things that IEEE have done in response to the crisis. Well, I look at it different angles. So one is from our flagship magazine called Spectrum. So we have the COVID-19 news and the resources hub. Well, we have conducted a lot of these technical talks and the innovation of work, not only preparing the technical capability of our members, and also we're having them go through the transition, going from face-to-face lectures to distant learning. And then we take a look at some of the examples of the local activities. And then I'll take a look in terms of the funding being raised by the IEEE Foundation. So you can go to the website, search IEEE Spectrum. We do have our IEEE resources. And then from there, you can take a look at some of the latest articles, and also the different range of the resources we made available to the members and to the public. So take a look at this, some of the range of the technical talks. And we have the resources, for the engineers, for the educators, parents, researchers, students, And then again, most of these can be tools and could be the webinars and as well. Okay, he asked me to start my video. Is it, are you still quite okay? Are you still seeing my screen?
No, sir, we can't see us, you. You're
Is it
still
okay?
not visible.
Okay.
Sir, we can
also
see
have
your photo. It's okay, sir.
Is it quite okay? Or you
Yes,
want,
sir, fine.
yep, okay. So we also have the resources for our members as well, all coming out from the different boards of the, we have the news articles so from our organization. And then we have the Innovation at Work, which is a collection of the talks, well, to equip our students and also the members. You see some of the examples of these talks, well, which are 30 to 45 minutes of conversations. And then we have different topics as well. So the typical technical topics like the daily challenges of the 4G, 5G, and IoT, the digital twins, student and child data privacy. I have mentioned that when we are preparing our members for the transitions into the distant learning. So again, these are some examples of the courses available. And coming back to some of the technical talks again. And also, not only just on the technical part, but also soft skills, like leadership. On the local activities, we have our local activities going on around the world. Well, in India, we'll give another one of the examples. Well, we have the hackathon challenge, which is conducted by a Hyderabad section and also the Bangalore section. So we challenge the members and the students to come up with innovative ideas on the ventilators, masks, and how to do the sanitizations and sterilization, etc. But we also invite the sections and the members to submit what they have been doing in response to the COVID-19 situations. And also we have tangible, actual activities being taken up by the initiatives like Indonesia. Well, they donate, they invite donations and also they develop, these contactless, hand washing machines. So they have given out a design and then they just simply encourage the development of this one to help the local rural areas. And even all across the world, I've seen that one of my esteemed colleagues, from Nigeria. So this is from the same continent, but this is from Uganda. So this example and how, the local members are helping out the frontline medical workers with the masks. Well, coming back to the last part on the IEEE Foundation. IEEE Foundation is one arm of the IEEE, in collecting donations from the members and the community so that we can help the community through education and technology. So we go through the 4 different pillars. Illuminate is mainly bringing light to the community and the villages. We provide education resources and we engage the members and also community. We energize through things like the award. So budget-wise, in 2019, they have able to raise the donation around close to $6 million, and then they use this money to fund a different program area, as you have seen earlier on, and overall funding around 4.6 million. And in response to the current COVID-19 situation, they also now started a COVID-19 response fund. The main idea is to drive the global innovation in response to the crisis, and also making use of engineering and technology to pursue the practical application, so to help the educators, families, and learners to support the lifelong learning. So what can we say in summary? I know the time is catching up. So I would say that, first of all, history shows us pandemics have come and gone. So looking back, of course, we may go back to 100 years ago, the Spanish flu, and then, even go back to a couple 100 years old, the Black Death. But even as close as not too long ago, we even have SARS that happened in Hong Kong and China. We got a MERS that happened in Middle East. We have the Ebola in Africa. But only this time, unfortunately, COVID-19, it has caused the global disruption. So of course, there are a lot of reasons for that. So we don't need to elaborate on this. But nevertheless, looking back, we see that they have come and gone, and we have seen it also happening. Like in the case of Australia, actually, we have more or less we're quite happy that we so-called flatten the curve, although we still have occasions, the number of new cases because they come in from overseas. But nevertheless, we can always remember there are challenges and there are opportunities. And IEEE and our members are responding to the crisis swiftly and appropriately as well. And we have our main, motto and vision is advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. So my only suggestions, to the audience is, we just all need to be positive. We need to be adaptive, and we need to be responsive as well to the opportunities, as well as the challenges in front of us. But most of all, we all have to remember the worst will be over one day, and then the best is definitely will come. So with these words, so I would like to say thank you for your attendance. And wishing everyone all the very best. Thank you very much. Okay, now I pass the time back to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Are there any questions? Any questions for sir? Okay, sir, there are no questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm sorry that I have to go now because, as I said, I was expecting a visitor. Then once again, I thank you very much for the invitation, and I wish everyone all the very best. And also, thank you for the conference, and also wish the conference a huge success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir. Now I request Ms. Margina Sheikh to introduce Honorable Shagun Solomon, Team Lead Helping Life Network, also in Nigeria.
Margina, please introduce the second speaker.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead, Margina.
Yes, ma'am.
Margina, please introduce the second speaker, Mr. Solomon.
Am I audible? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am,
Yes,
you're
you're
audible.
audible. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
The second speaker for this session is Mr. Segun Solomon. Mr. Segun Solomon is a young African leader with strong interest in advocating for quality education and initiating community development through emancipation, advocacy, empowerment, social entrepreneurship, and community organization for action. The executive director at Helping Life Network, seeking change community through education, empowerment, and development of individuals become the best version of them, thereby creating society
Hey,
and
ma'am,
cities
please can you
with
check your
lives
connection,
improved.
your net connection? Yes, ma'am, you can carry on.
Àkáǹtì tí mo lò tẹ́lẹ̀ yẹn. Ìyẹn tí mo òkè wọn ti yá mi.
Yes, Solomon, sir, 2 minutes.
Can I continue?
Oh,
Hello?
hello, good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am,
Marjana,
you can
please continue fast.
Hello, can you hear me, please?
The speaker is waiting to speak. Please finish his introduction fast.
Can you hear me, please?
He is the CEO. He is the CEO at Penguin Services and Education and Content Management. Segun is also director at Brain, a partnering institutions in Nigeria. Young African Initiative of the Unite on the Global Development for Community of Austin from Prudley over and beyond the trade to become the individual community development.
Ma'am, I'll take over.
Hello, good
Ma'am,
morning.
can I introduce him?
Okay,
Hello?
okay, sir, you can introduce him.
Yeah. Mr. Segun Solomon is a young African leader with strong interest in advocating education and initiating community development through emancipation, advocacy, empowerment, social entrepreneurship, and community organization for action. He is executive director of Helping Lives Network, a network of young fellows making changes in the community through education, empowerment, advocacy, and campaigns for the development of individuals to become the best version of them, thereby creating a society of better citizens with happy lives and quality growth. He is the CEO of Penguin Services, an education and content management consulting firm. Mr. Segun is also an associate director of Brain Builders International, a partnering NGO for the United Nations in Nigeria.
My status, I am live now.
He is a fellow young African leader, an initiative of the United States government, and has been featured on the global web of the network, Yali Learns. Through his initiative and based on his passion for community development, he convened the Osun Yali Learns, a platform through which 70 young and budding leaders in Osun State and beyond were trained and certified to become more responsible leaders in their individual communities and spur community development projects via their knowledge and skills acquisition. Through his initiative, several advocacy groups were also birthed to pursue the realization of 10 different Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations for 2030. He will be speaking today on impact of COVID-19 crisis on digital workspace and education sector. Over to Dr. Segun Solomon. Welcome, sir.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here, everyone. And I must sincerely appreciate you all for bringing these
So please go ahead with your
great
presentation.
scholars like okay. If you can hear me, I believe
Yes, can hear you.
okay, good. Okay. So like I was saying, I sincerely appreciate every one of you for bringing up this initiative. It's a very lovely one. And I must take this time to appreciate Professor Dr. Aftab Hawa Shaikh for bringing me up on this. I sincerely appreciate him and everyone who has put efforts together to make sure that this becomes a reality. I sincerely appreciate you all. Okay, so reaching you here from Nigeria, I've been invited to talk about the economic impact of COVID-19 on the world. And this is actually a very wide and of a broad scope. And I must say that that's a very creative one. So on my own part, I'll be talking about bridging the gaps. I said the gaps, not just a gap. I mean, there are so many lacunas, like Professor Lance Fong actually rightly said, giving instances about Australia. So I'm going to give several instances about Nigeria, about Africa, and of course, based on my knowledge about the world at large. So permit me to share my screen with you now as we start this. Okay. Yeah, so talking about bridging the gap, COVID-19 and the global goals. You see, I'm going to be running through this within the 30-minute schedule given unto me. And here we have the outlines, the global goals, the sustainable development goals. We'll be seeing the impact of COVID-19 on the SDGs from SDG 1 to 17. We'll be talking about bridging the gaps now, about the global system, the regional, continental, and the subcontinental systems, and what the national systems of the world can do. And then we'll run through that, to conclude. Okay, so straight up now here, under a new norm, social, and environmental systems influenced by a pandemic called COVID-19. It's no more news for anyone in the world. Even the young children who are, underage also know about COVID-19, and everybody, at least as far as I know, in my country, think about. And I would love you to please take note of the highlighted, for instance, now this a new norm, economic, social, and environmental. Those ones that takes, different colors from the background color. Okay, so like it is now, we're going to be looking at the world under a new norm. And then the new norm that the world operates under is a world whose economic systems, social and environmental systems have been changed. And we're going to be talking about that more. Okay. We said the year 2020, which was tagged the genesis of a new decade, we all were celebrating it. Oh yeah, it's a new decade, it's a new be the receptor, I should say, of a global pandemic. And like you can see, the year 2020 was tagged genesis of a new decade, but the year has been choked by similarly off since the flu pandemic of 1918. And I must say, like Professor Lance Fong said earlier, that of course the world had experienced diverse pandemic, but in the history of the United Nations, at least for the past 75 years now, they reported that no pandemic has ever been globally, has ever put global disruption onto the world. So like you can see on the screen, ever been globally disrupting as COVID-19, not even HIV or Ebola or Lassa fever. And like Professor Lance mentioned, that continent here in Africa, there was a time we had Ebola. We were able to, we were able, with the help of the World Health Organization, we were able to overcome between 500 and 800 million people across the world. So as it is now, we are still counting the number of deaths that COVID-19 has brought, because it still continues. So straight up, we say, now what are the effects? Just looking at them on the peripheral. Jobs are lost on daily basis, businesses have shut down, and many more are still getting deep down in financial matters. And like our Professor Fong, whom I will always acknowledge as far as I am concerned for today, said, he mentioned the fact that over 2 million jobs have been lost in the UK alone. Over 2 million. And of course, there was a time I was watching the news where I saw that the US was complaining, the US citizens were complaining. Under the lockdown pressure, so many things were going wrong. And then jobs were being lost. Series of events were happening. And people had to resort to using what we call the gig business, working just temporarily or casually offline, and just to make ends meet. Okay. And of course, we have the fact that this pandemic has eaten down the world in such a way that personal goals, I must say, even for every one of us who are participating in this conference, I can say confidently that you and I have had our personal goals truncated in a way by this pandemic. Of course, the pandemic doesn't come with a gun about to shoot us, but then the effects, the consequences, the measures that were recommended by the World Health Organization, and of course, which we all must comply with, actually puts everyone under distress. And in the next slide, you're going to see something. And I should mention that this has also brought national and international goals to be truncated. And in this, we say attention of nations, governments, and international organizations have been shifted from their initially set goals to battle the current enemy of all human race. And I must acknowledge the fact that President Donald Trump of the US once mentioned, in fact, more than once had mentioned that COVID-19 is an unseen enemy. But I think if we look at the pictures, the images, the world, the nations of the world painting COVID-19, like myself and my family members would just joke about, would say, oh, how many colors does COVID-19 have? Could it be blue, pink, red, or whatever? So we have it in different colors in diverse nations. So it is an enemy of all human race. And I must say, like it is written here in the small font, it says, those common goals put up ab initio for all nations to pursue and accomplish by the year 2020 are called the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, hence the tag Global Goals. Pardon me for that, by the United Nations, for all nations of the world to pursue together under a common mindset. And we are going to be looking at those goals quickly within this 30 minutes. We have the global goals called the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. We have it as SDGs. And the noble tagline for this is leaving no one behind. Like you can see here. And now, what definition can we actually give to these SDGs? How can we a way that just anybody would understand, that a layman would understand simply? We say, from my own perspective, now I said, SDGs are the set of goals which constitutes, please note, the action plans of the United Nations to establish universal peace, the word action, prosperity, and freedom for the people in all nations of the world. there are 4 keywords there, and of course, I think there should be 5 because here we have all nations of the world, all nations of the world. Like we can have it there. We have all nations of the world. It's the goal of all world. And of course, again, let's look at the key focal points of this goal. We have peace, people, planet, prosperity, and partnership. And the dimensions of these goals, I'm going to explain this in the process of my conversation here. We have the dimensions as the economic, social, and environmental dimensions. And I must refer that, while I was giving the opening to this, the opening, or should I say the introduction, I'm still under the introduction to this, I mentioned the fact that 3 things were highlighted. The first is the economic, the social, and the environmental, the 3 dimensions of the global goals. And of course, the key pledge, like I have mentioned initially, is to never leave anyone behind. To never leave anyone behind means not just human beings, of course, nations, either developed, underdeveloped, developing. We have diverse nations, categorized as the case may be. And then the key focal point 1, the people. What is the focus? What is the agenda of this set of goals for the people? Please take note of the highlights again. To end poverty, the first one is poverty, to end hunger in all their forms and dimensions, and to ensure that all human beings can fulfill their potential in dignity, not just fulfilling your potential, but fulfilling it in dignity, in equality, environment. There are 5 keywords there or phrases. We have poverty, hunger, potential, and dignity. We have equality, and we have a healthy environment. Those ones that will relate the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, here, and everybody is there with me. Okay, I would assume that everyone is moving on with me. Okay, so we have the focal point 2 as the planet, and it is the goal of the United Nations to protect the planet from degradation. Take note of that. Including through sustained consumption and production, sustainably managing its natural resources, and taking urgent action on climate change so that it can support the needs of the present and future generations. Those are the focal points. And of course, for prosperity, what does the United Nations want to accomplish, in line, in tandem with prosperity? The first, of course, under this is prosperous and fulfilling lives. Look at it. To ensure that all human beings can enjoy prosperous and fulfilling lives, and that's economic, social, and technological progress. Those are keywords, key phrases. And of course, the 4th focal point is peace, to establish peace. How? To foster peaceful, just, and inclusive societies which are free from fear and violence. And the United Nations now came up with a conclusion that there can be no sustainable development without peace. And when there is no peace, there can be no sustainable development. That's what they're saying. And no peace can exist without the accomplishment of the sustainable development goals. Let's move on. And the 5th focal point, which is the last but not the least, is partnership. And I think this is of the United Nations as far as the accomplishment of these goals is concerned. So what it is to mobilize the means required to implement this agenda through a revitalized global partnership for sustainable development. Through a revitalized global partnership, not about localized partnership alone, but about global partnership. Like for instance, now what this the Damoda College of Commerce and Economics is doing in conjunction with the organization of Professor Dr. Aftab Shaikh is a form of global partnership. I am from Nigeria. The professor emeritus is from Australia, and I could see people also from diverse nations apart from India. This is a global partnership. And we are talking about the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations now. So we are partnering to ensure the sustainable development of the world, not just about Nigeria and just about Africa, but of the world entirely. So because of my time, I'm going to move on to the next one. So based on the spirit of strengthening global solidarity, and that is the song, that is the you know, the triumphing song that the world is having at the moment. Are we together, please? Are we together? Oh, that's breaking. Okay, I would assume that we are moving together. And of course, this is also to ensure that, sorry, that is keeping in a way. So now, using this focus in particular on the needs of the poorest and the most vulnerable, and with the participation of all countries, all stakeholders, and all people, that is the key, leaving no one behind. And now let us look at the development. SDGs doesn't, as a set of goals, just come up, through a nightmare or through a dream of the United Nations. No, it's something that has been happening based on the roots, which I refer to as which is referred to as the Millennium Development Goals of the United Nations. And of course, the Millennium Development Goals of the United Nations was formed as a set of goals for the world entirely in the year 2000, and that's actually the reason behind Millennium. And it was meant to span for 15 years from year 2000 to the year 2015, and it focused on 8 goals. But I must say, like in the comments you can see on the screen, I said it's highly unaccomplished, especially in developing countries. LLC in landlocked, that's LLCs, landlocked countries in least developing countries, and of course in SIDs. Okay, in the course of my conversation, we're going to get better insights into that. And of course, I believe that by the are being published, we'll have access to better information about them. And of course, now let's move on to the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals to transform our world, established in, you have the history there. It was formed within 25th and 27th September 2015, once the Millennium Development, when the Millennium Development Goals expired. And it was launched into full utilization on 1st January 2016. It was developed from the Millennium Development Goals Lab, like I have explained. And of course, the number of associated targets. Now, there are 17 goals, broadly speaking, but within each of these goals, there are targets. And putting all the 17 goals together, there are 169 targets. And the target year of expiration for this is the year 2030. And that was why when 2020 began, the world, everybody celebrated, oh, wow, it's the beginning of a new decade. And we're hoping for the best, hoping to accomplish the goals of the universe in the next 10 years. But it's so amazing to find COVID-19 eating and hammering nations of the world. It's more or less like eating the shepherd, striking the shepherd, and the sheep, the flock is scattered. Okay, so that all of these goals, the 17 development goals, like you know, we are a company, then that shows that there must be a way of sustaining the financial system of every individual in the universe. And of course, if an individual, like the report says, that majority of the people in the universe, I mean in the world, live under an average of $1.50 per day. At least an average human being should be able to live under that. I mean, with that. But we discovered that poverty has stricken so many nations and continents in the world, such that so many people are living below this line. And somebody who doesn't have money would not be able to eat and enjoy whatsoever meal he intends to eat. That would affect the accomplishment of goal number 2, zero hunger. And of course, good health. We say that health is wealth. But then if health is affected, then definitely the goal for the, the operation no poverty, goal number 1, will be affected. Quality education. We say that education is the best legacy. Without education, and of course, I should refer to the esteemed late philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, who said, education is the foundation of the development of any nation. Any nation that would develop must have its citizens well educated, both mind, scholarly. We have gender equality. So let me just move on to the next one. Now, this shows the Sustainable Development Goals and targets are integrated and indivisible. They are integrated, indivisible, they are global in nature, and they have universal application. They can be applied universally. And as we have it now, we have this this analysis showing to us, how these goals are interlinked. You can see goal 6, goal 4 put together, and all of this. We're going to see more as we continue. And of course, the next one here, the impacts of COVID-19 on SDGs 1 to 17. And I think that's the major focus of this discussion. Excuse me. So while we move on to discuss how we can now bridge the gaps that have been created by COVID-19 on the SDGs. Again, I'm going to refer us back to the hotline. And here we see the hotline. It says, the impacts of COVID-19 on SDGs. I put up 5 groups here. We have SDGs 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, and 11 put together as group 1. This is not in accordance with the United Nations or any international organization, but based on my own discretion to ensure that I have a proper explanation and establish a proper understanding of this concept in the minds of everyone. And of course, SDGs 3, 6, and 12, they are very, very related. One cannot stay without the other. And that's key. They are integrated successfully on one goal without dealing with the other in a way. SDG and 15. So let me now go back to just okay. So looking at this now, we have goals 1, 2, 8, 10, 11, and 5 put together. We have goals 9, 4, 5, 10 put together. We have goals 13, 7, 15, and 14 put together. And we have goals 3, 6, and 12 put together. So for proper understanding of this, I'm going to show the Sustainable Development Goals again. Now, let's look at it. The first one talks about no poverty. Like I was explaining initially, for us to beat down poverty, there must be, there must be something that fetches money for people. Do you want to be rich or wealthy at all? You need to have an income stream. And of course, people are working. We go to our daily jobs. We have entrepreneurs, we have professors, we have doctors, we have scholars. We all are working, not just about feeding ourselves, but meeting diverse needs of life. And that falls under decent work and economic growth. That's goal number 8 here. Decent work and economic growth. But without decent work and economic growth, there will be poverty. And when there will be poor health condition, going to a decent hospital for clinical check. Of course, we have institutions where people are having, we have the government, both federal, state, and local government, providing basic health care basic health care facilities. But there are situations where we have seen people who need critical health attention and they aren't able to get it because they lack the money. Poverty. People are suffering severe hunger. I'm not going to be talking about statistics for now because of my time. People are going to be, people are starving, people are living under hunger. And that results to poor health condition and well-being. That results to poor mental health. That results to depression for some people. That results to death eventually for some people. And of course, without beating goal number one, which is no poverty, then many people would not be able to afford quality education. Sorry to say, in my continent, Africa, in my nation, Nigeria, of course, the government is trying providing public school systems for people, for everyone to be able to afford going to school, at least the elementary stage. But the reality is that no quality education is free. No quality education is free. As far as Nigeria is concerned, and of course in all nations of the world, as far as I know, you pay to get the education you need in tertiary institutions. So that shows that for one to get quality education like Professor Dr. Aftab or every one of us here on this in this conference room, then definitely you need money. So you have to overcome poverty to get quality education. Gender equality, it's a battle of the universe, and we are winning gradually. I'm going to talk about that later. And of course, we have sustainable cities and communities. We will discover that, for instance, in my traditional environment here in Nigeria, we see people who make use of firewood to cook, and that brings about the emission of carbon into the atmosphere. Do you see that? Goal 11 is affecting goal 13. It is affecting goal 15. And it is affecting even goal number 12. It is affecting goal number 6. So they are so much interlinked. And that's why the United Nations said that, these are indivisible. Like we can say here, that these are indivisible. Okay, here, like the Sustainable Development Goals and targets are integrated and indivisible. They are global in nature and they have universal applicability. So as it is now, moving on, we have goal number 7, affordable and clean energy. I'm going to make it clear. I'm going to use a layman's illustration. It is something we can see almost everywhere in the world. We say that, for instance, you see a man driving his car or a truck, whatever form of vehicle, even a bike, a motorbike, and you discover that the vehicle or the motorbike is very old. The rate of the gaseous emission, the exhaust fumes coming out of it is so high, you can see the smoke coming out of it. That is affecting goal number 13. And why would such man continue to use such car? It is because of poverty. Do we want to talk about life on land? Scientists, I studied chemistry and of course biology, at least in secondary school. I know that through photosynthesis, plants make use of the carbon dioxide we give out, and they give out oxygen in return as their own byproduct. So as it is now, when the rate of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is far beyond what can be consumed by the plants, then definitely there is a chaos, climate action. And when this occurs, it affects all other goals put together. And I'm going to show us this. Take note of this. Goal number 1, 2, 5, 10, 8, 11. Now, Let us move on to the next one. We can see goal number 94510. Goal number 94510. Sorry, I'm not showing you statistics. I believe professors and doctors are that quite well. And I love using whatever. And of course, side, it's something you can always see. Now, let's review goal number 4, 5, and 10 together and see the interrelationship. Goal number 9 says there should be industry, innovation, and goal number is there should be quality education. And statistics has it that over 200 million students are at home, not going to school. And that is across more than 200 countries. We have partial lockdowns of schools in some countries, and of course we have complete lockdown. And of course, like in Nigeria here and the majority of the African nations, there are total lockdown of schools. Thank God for Zoom. We are doing a conference right now, connecting every one of us together from across nations of the world through Zoom. That's true innovation. Quality education in a way. And then let's go to goal number 5, gender equality. Statistics has it that many more than, I'm not going to mention numbers, many more than average of females, especially in Africa, are being deprived of having access to quality education. Why is that? Because there is no gender equality. There is this traditional ideology that a female child is inferior, and in fact, at the extreme in some nations, and of course in some traditions, and of course in my own tradition, Yoruba, for instance, we tend to claim that I'm not going to spend my money on a female child. After all, she's going to end up in her husband's house. So whatever the liabilities are, let herself and the husband go ahead and manage it. So we don't offer quality education to females, but that is changing. Applause to Africa. I celebrate my continent. And of course, we have goal number 10. And I know that that is happening in all continents of the world. Statistics has it that Asia, I mentioned the fact that Millennium Development Goals were highly unaccomplished, especially in developing countries. Now, look at it. The intention to reduce poverty and social exclusion was not accomplished. In 2015, the achievement of universal primary education, kudos, they did that brilliantly well. And that's what I mentioned initially. At least the government is willing to offer basic, universal primary education for free. But once you intend to go beyond that level, it's no more going to be free. Quality education is not free. Anything that is going to be quality is not going to be free. Even that which is a fake substance is not going to be free. You purchase it with your money. And then we have to promote gender equality and empower women. That is a flaw. It's not happening so rapidly as the United Nations would have had it happening. And then to reduce child mortality, that is when we have improve maternal health. And of course, they accomplished that so well in Nigeria, for instance, but there is a need for improvement. To combat HIV and tuberculosis in 5, and it embattled so rapidly until 2012. And of course, up until now, the Earth system has never been able to come up with a drug that would cure this. And of course, we have to ensure environmental sustainability, partnership for development. Now, all of this put together, we would see that 9, 4, 5, and 10 put together, they are so much interrelated. And of course, I'm going to examine goals number 3, 6, and 12. Goals 3, 6, 12. Let's see that together. Goal 3 says there should be good health and well-being. Goal 6 says there should be clean water and sanitation, and goal 12 says there should be responsible consumption and production. Look at it. To establish a very secured health system with well-being for human beings, there is a need for responsible consumption and production. And now, goal number 12 does not mean what we consume as per what we eat. Responsible consumption in terms of how we explore the natural resources, responsible consumption and production in terms of how we utilize our natural resources when explored, responsible consumption and production in terms of areas are being regenerated and reused to ensure that they do not pollute the environment. And then clean water and sanitation. I said I love using a layman's example. For instance, I believe in all continents of the world, we would find in all nations of the world, I've been to the US, but I can say it, that you would find people who are dumping refuse on waterways. That's not a least developed countries pollution. And in fact, goal number 6 affects goal number 14, life below water. Aquatics are being killed. And of course, people don't have access to clean water. When people don't have access to clean water, it affects their health and well-being. So it's beyond argument to state that all of these goals are interlinked. And of course, we have goals 13, 7, 14, and 15 put together. Let's examine them together. Goal, this one says action, effective climate action. But set everything interlinked. And now the last one, which is goal number 16 and 17. Like I put them separately, goal 16 here and goal 17 here. Please, are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now I have been able to prove to us that all of these goals are very much interrelated and none of them can be accomplished in isolation. Now, let us now relate it with the current system of the world. No poverty. I mentioned the fact that decent work and economic growth are keys, to accomplishing goal number 1. But in the world at the moment, permit me to give you statistics here. We have it that, excuse me. Now, in the face of this global pandemic, I should mention it that, uh, COVID-19 reports have it recessions 2008 and and balanced economy. So in the very preceding year, COVID, free from this recession that has been happening since 2008. And then that, like I would read it out, it says the United Nations gave the report that global growth was already the slowest since the previous 10 years. That is in 2019. The global growth became the slowest ever for the past 10 years. And then being hit again by what could be tagged a destructive mullet. When a judge lifts up his mullet in the court and hits. So I would say that COVID-19, phrasing it, is more or less like a destructive mullet hitting the world so hard and battering us, hammering us so seriously. The International Monetary Fund reassessed the prospect of growth for the year 2020 and 2021, and it declared that the world has just entered a fresh new recession. This is not a happy thing, but there is this enthusiasm in me, like it's a fresh new recession. This is not to scare anyone, but to prompt us to action. And they declared that the world has just entered a fresh new recession that is than that of 2009. So let me read an excerpt here. In Asia and in the Pacific alone, from my research, I found out that the drop in global demand will cost the IMF declared that the cost in global demand will cost an estimated amount of 172 billion US dollars from trade alone. And that is equivalent to 0.8% drop of the gross domestic product of the region. And of more immediate concern is the COVID-19 crisis impact on fiscal position, which exacerbates the risk of a new debt crisis in the region, in Asia and the Pacific. And that does not apply to the Asia continent and of course the Pacific alone. Africa is included. IMF is pleading not just for African nations alone, but of course for developing countries, for least developed countries, in all these categories put together, that there should be some measures taken to relieve them of the post-COVID effect. Because nations are paying debt already. Nigeria, for instance, is owing over $3 trillion in debt. And repaying this requires so much on the part of my nation, for instance. So nations like Nigeria, of course, we say that Nigeria is the giant of Africa, both economically, population-wisely, and all the likes. But this is the reality. The world might not recover from this because IMF tells us that the world's GDP is actually going to drop to something like 30% of its usual amount. Okay, let me read on. Now, it says the region still has space with the median fiscal and debt to GDP ratio well below 40%. But even before the pandemic, the Asia Pacific region has experienced weakening private investment and falling tax revenues. And I must state here that, in another research, the Interpress system declared that the world is having, quoting Sir Antonio, the United Nations Secretary General, that the world is actually, the United Nations is afraid, and I think it's the fear of everyone. It's my fear personally too, that majority of these sustainable development goals might not be accomplished. They might not be achievable. No poverty. And there is this cliche that says, money is the wheel of all good, of gospel propagation. Permit me to use that phrase. We say money is the wheel for the propagation of gospels. Not even gospels alone, not even good news alone, even bad news. Money is required for almost everything. Do we want to overcome hunger? Money is needed in the world. Do we want to offer quality education? Even if the government is going to do that, money is needed. But COVID-19 has beaten and battered the nations of the world. And let me read this. In another point of the report and in reference to ILO, the International Labour Organization, analysis has it that we could lose between 5 million to 25 million jobs and see losses in labor income in the range of 860 billion US dollars. That's huge. And that's just the limit. And that's to 3.4, trillion US dollars. That's a negative impact on SDG number 8 alone. And if SDG number 8, which says decent work and economic growth should be provided for all, is not accomplished, then definitely poverty will continue to ravage the universe. Let's move on. I'm going to quote the statement of Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General. It says, last year's report, referring to 2019, had already warned that there was, and I quote, simply no way that we can achieve the 17 SDGs without achieving gender equality and empowering women and girls, referring to goal number 5, gender equality. Now, I've been laying much of my emphasis on goal number 1, but now, even goal number 4 has been declared as being very, very essential if we must accomplish all the 17 goals put together. Now, let's move on to the next one. I would love to. It says that there are also fear about what a pandemic could mean for long-term food security. Goal number 2, zero WFP. One low and middle income countries may be pushed into acute food insecurity. People were so close to me. And I would say, like in the presentation paper I gave, is that into the universe, but a change of class. We tend to class people into categories, saying, oh, this person or this family is in the high class, the middle class, and then the lower class. But the reality is that there are so many high class fellows who have dropped down now into the middle class. Why? Because they take loans to run their companies, and now companies are under lockdown. No income is being made. Definitely. And this is why there has to be measures to bridge this. And we are going to be talking about the measures. So I think I should be fast because of my time. Okay. If 130 million people in low and middle income countries will be pushed into acute food system, food insecurity system this year alone, I must say that the world is insecure. The world is insecure in the sense that security, in terms of security of lives and properties, would be threatened. In the first 14 lockdown period we experienced in Nigeria, declared by the federal government in a very noble community, Lagos, to be precise, reports had it that towards the closure of the first 14 days lockdown, there was a rise in hoodlums practices. We had reports giving us that, area boys, like we call them in Nigeria, touts, thugs, began to terrorize communities, stealing from them. This were people who were making their livings on daily earnings, working in the garage, doing all sort of labor works to earn income legitimately. But now they were being pushed to the wall. What they were doing to get money to, fend for their daily needs are being shot up, and now they had to resort in a now which resulted in goal number 2 being affected together are being affected, then definitely there will be no peace. Goal number 16. Meanwhile, in nations of the world. So COVID-19 has brought it to a halt. Goal number 16, broken, shattered. Peace is no more existing in nations, in communities, even in local environments. Justice and strong institutions are even under suspension, suspension per se. Absolutely. They are related and interlinked. And COVID-19 is bursting hot water on everything, I should say. And let's move on to the next group. I grouped them, group 2, SDGs 3, 6, examine that. How has COVID-19 affected SDGs 3, 6, and 12? SDG 3 says good health and well-being essential. Goal number 6, clean water and sanitation. And goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. Yes, that is the interpress services. That was what I was trying to remember the other time. So IPS says that billions of people worldwide still lack access to safely managed water and sanitation services, including 2.2 billion people without safe drinking. That's figures. 2.2 billion people in the universe. Safe. You see companies, industries, there are chimneys into the firmament, of course, that's a bit safe. But then what about situations where there are liquid waste, there are sewage disposal system? This is polluting the water bodies. And even if it is not channeled into water bodies directly, channeled underground, we have the filtrating system. If they are found or located close to where water is, okay, let me give you a typical example in Nigeria. In the oil-rich region, we call it the Niger Delta regions in Nigeria. For instance, in Bayelsa State, there has been this battle against the government, and this, like I said, threatens security of life and properties. In a research I conducted, recently, I discovered that there are diverse militant groups. We have MEND in Nigeria. We have diverse, so many of them. We have the Oduduwas people, a number of them like that. We have EPOB, as the one I was trying to remember. Now, all of these people, these militant groups, and of course, OPC is actually in the southwestern region. Now, the south-south region, and of course, the southwestern region also being oil-rich, but basically focusing on these delta regions now. We discovered that people have their own natural habitat infiltrated by companies. For instance, companies that are producing oil. Shell, give me names. Shell, we have we have Chevron, we have Moby. Now, all of these companies, they are exploring oil from this region, but the exploration process leads to the pollution of the water bodies of the people in those communities. And then in a way of channeling their pleasure over a long process, it eventually resulted in this, resulting to forming organization of people who are protesting against the of these companies. And eventually it developed into becoming a threat to the company. And eventually it's developed, it's evolved into becoming a threat, not even to the company alone now, to the government. And it doesn't stop there, becoming a threat even to their own citizens. Now, where does it stem from? It stems polluting our water system, you are polluting our land, and now goal number 6 is clean water and sanitation. So when the people were protesting, it eventually resulted in insecurity, not even for Nigerians alone, but even for people, who are expatriates in the country, in those regions. Straight up, I'm going to move on. Apart from the aforementioned categories of people, the most vulnerable in the face of this crisis are those who are already at risk. And then there is an acknowledgement for countries like this, those who are already living in highly concentrated areas, whose lives have already been upended for other reasons and who lack access to basic social and political protections or to any support system. Information factors are especially vulnerable. I was trying to see the statistics of nations, the population of the of the world, and I discovered that Asia takes the highest percentage, with China and India rating the highest in terms of population density. Now, with this, we know that these areas are highly congested. I know there are measures being put in place by these countries with respect to them, and this is my hosting nation, of course, that measures are being taken to curb these population excesses, but more still needs to be done. And I sincerely respect the government of these nations for what they've been doing. So countries like that are prone to the effects of the failure of the United Nations to accomplish goal number 3, 6, and 12. This brings, when the population is high, this brings the nation all together in a congested environment. And that is why disease such as COVID-19 could spread so rapidly and easily there. We know of nations with very low population, the tendency, or should I say the percentage, the ratio in comparison to nations with high population is that, look at US, for instance, Italy. So the failure of countries to accomplish these goals, number 3, 6, and 12, would actually affect so many other areas as well. So I think I have spent so much time here. So let me quickly move on to recommendations system, the regional system, and of course, the nations as individuals. So for instance, now these recommendations goes for the global system. We know in the face of reality, we know that COVID-19 has actually affected all areas of human life. In fact, not just human life alone, but everything that has the breath of life in it. So recommendations for the global system now is that, this is according to the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force on Financing for Development. This is a global organization, in partnership with, under the United Nations. So they came up with some recommendations, and I'm going to be showing them just in brief, with brief explanation, of course, as well. So 8 poor countries. That's the first thing, that there must be aid for poor countries. If nations of the universe must continue to strive under solidarity, then there is a need. And if we are still going to keep to that promise, that it's a pledge taken by high profile, high representatives of nations and heads of government to live in solidarity. And like I said, that the tagline of the SDGs is leaving no one behind. So there is a need to aid poor countries. By now, what can they do? Suspend debt repayment. I'm not going to talk so much about that because of time. So I believe we all understand what we mean by debt. It's what everybody understands. So debt repayments can be suspended. And I believe the International Monetary Fund is doing so much to help with that. And let me read this out. It says, countries must advocate and support implementation of human-centered, oh, no. There is a part I must read out. Yes, that to prevent a debt crisis, poor countries must be allowed to immediately suspend debt payments and reassess debt sustainability beyond the crisis. So now the International Monetary Fund, and I believe with the ministries of and right now, I know there are so many things being done to ensure that nations that are most vulnerable suspend debt repayments and, of course, reaccess debt sustainability beyond the crisis, that is, even after the crisis. And then we have protect the labor force. Like I have always mentioned, goal number 8 being affected, goal number 9, 11 being affected affects goal number 1. And if goal number 1 alone is affected, all the other goals are being affected. So the COVID-19 has affected absolutely everything. And that is the reason why it is essential for global system to protect the labor force. Are we together? Are we still together?
We're together, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we must protect the labor force. And what can we do? The labor force, essentially, there was a recommendation given by the United Nations that all, and I'm still going to get there, that all nations should strive to, offer response system, through palliatives to individual citizens of their nation. Nigeria, of course, practiced it, but it was so much of a burden on the country to the extent that the federal government eventually had to say, oh no, after the first lockdown for 14 days, the second lockdown for 14 days, and then they say the third lockdown should go for 7 days. And after the 7 days, they say, oh no, excuse us, because even the palliative measures being, utilized and implemented do not reach all the population of people that were targeted. The most vulnerable, the daily income earners, the informal sector workers, people, like I mentioned, guys on the streets who were trying to make their daily income, even Okada riders, I mean motorbike riders who do it for commercial purpose. What about taxi drivers? What about commercial vehicle drivers from, interstate? Now in Nigeria, for instance, at the moment, interstate travel is placed under ban. So nobody can travel from one state to another. You can only travel within your own confined state. And of course, that happens only for 4 days out of a week. So it's affecting absolutely everybody. So the government has to protect the labor force by helping the daily income earners. The informal sector workers, what do we mean by this? Now, companies, for instance, hotels, they are actually I would say they are desperately hit by COVID-19. No, no person is allowed. In fact, like I found a new grammatical expression in the dictionary just last night. It's a new, I think it entered Oxford Dictionary, stating that anybody who doesn't comply with the rules and regulations of the World Health Organization and of course the individual nations for curbing COVID-19 is a COVIDiot. I mean, a COVIDiot. So nobody who is a sane man would also want to go to hotels in a bid to lodge. People still have to stay back in their homes. So it would be a COVIDiot that would go to a hotel and pay to contact coronavirus. So the informal sector, for instance, now, even school owners have been hit. School fees are paid. Quite a number of things are going wrong. So the informal sectors need help. And this should be the goal of all coordinated, like you can see here, this should be the goal of all coordinated fiscal and monetary actions to help them. For instance, now the informal sectors can be helped by giving, subsidies, by helping with loan repayment relief and several other things. And now, because of time, let's move on to the next
Hello,
point.
Solomon sir. Hello,
Yes.
Solomon sir. Sir, we are
Yeah.
running out of time. So if you could please conclude.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah, I'm
because we have
concluding now.
paper presentations to follow, sir. So sorry to
Okay.
disturb you. Yeah.
No problem. I'm almost done. So to resist
Thanks.
protectionist measures, I'm just going to stroll trade barriers, maintain, and all of that. Developed countries should take explicit measures to boost the economies of the debt relief, help create domestic fiscal space, inject concessional finance, and do all other things that are needed. And of course, strengthen international that. Now, there are recommendations for regions, continents, and subcontinents, and it starts with this: adopt a do no harm trade policy, preserve regional connectivity, ensure regional monetary fiscal coordination. And I'm going to the end of this now. Private financial sectors, such as insurance companies at the regional level, should be engaged to support businesses through sustainable investments. You know, for instance, now insurance companies, it's been mentioned and highlighted here. We have the need to address structural challenges, transboundary risks, strengthen normative frameworks to overcome COVID-19, and diverse other things. The recommendations for individual nations is that there should be stimulus packages to alleviate economic hardship, and I've mentioned that initially, using Nigeria, for instance, to alleviate economic hardship on citizens and the most vulnerable ones in the society. And of course, to give aid to businesses, I have mentioned it, subsidies, tax relief, debt forgiveness, to ensure liquidity and consequently protect the jobs of such business employees. Implement temporary reductions of payroll and social security charges, value-added taxes, and even tax rebates. And of course, there is a need for nations to protect human rights with proportionate inclusion without leaving anyone out of the protection zone. And that is what I'll be concluding with, that the world has been hit with the novel virus, coronavirus, and I believe if we are not going to leave anyone behind, then the world is actually going to come out as champions over COVID-19. Thank you for having me. I sincerely appreciate you. Once again, I appreciate Damoda College of Commerce and Economics. I appreciate Professor Aftab Shaikh. I appreciate everyone, and I can see Miss Margina Shaikh here, Surab Patel. I appreciate absolutely everyone. Thank you for having me. I sincerely appreciate you.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
You have inspiring speech and wonderful session with you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Our participants are very happy with your speech. Thank you so much. Honorable Dr. Chung Chelang Fung and Honorable Solomon sir and are all distinguished experts. We are really grateful to all our international speakers. On behalf of Vidya Vikas Mandal, Sri Damodar College of Commerce and Economics, Margao, Goa, we greatly acknowledge your kind support. We finally thanks to all the participants who are from all over the globe for the gracious presence. Thank you all for your presence and insight. We do hope to interact with you. Now an announcement regarding photo session. I request all the participants to switch on their cameras.
Okay.
Thank you all the participants for your smiling face. Now we'll conclude with our paper presentation.
Good evening, everyone. we start with the paper presentations now. Before we start, I have an
Wow.
announcement to
So
make.
many private messages.
The participants or the presenters who were
The
unable to
paper
present their
presentation.
work yesterday can present their paper today after the scheduled presentations are done for today. So we start with the presentations. The first presenter is Mr. Saurabh Sanjay Patil, Bautak Shastra Vibhag, Lashwaji Vidyapit, Kolhapur, India. And his paper title is Corona Mahamariवर सुरू असलेला संशोधन.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible. You can start with your paper presentation.
Uh,
Please note the time allotted is 5 minutes.
okay,
And
ma'am.
you'll be reminded at 4 minutes.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah, you can start.
Okay, I have not create the PPT, so I just wanted to read out the paper.
Okay.
Okay. The name of my paper is कोरोना महामारीवर सुरू असलेले संशोधन. कोरोनाचा पहिला रुग्ण चीनमधील वुहान शहरात सापडला. त्यानंतर या महामारीने आज रौद्र रूप धारण केलेले आणि जगातील जवळपास 195 देशांमध्ये कोरोनाची साथ असलेली आहे. औषध सापडले नाही, मात्र जगभरातील शास्त्रज्ञ शोधण्यासाठी दिवसरात्र प्रयत्न करत आहेत आणि याचाच आढावा मी या पेपरमध्ये घेतलेला आहे. कोरोना व्हायरसवर लागण झालेल्या एका ब्रिटिश रुग्णावर HIV औषधाची चाचणी वैद्यकीय महाविद्यालयात करण्यात आली आहे. संबंधित रुग्णाची परवानगी घेऊन केलेली ही चाचणी भारत देशात प्रथमच झाली असावी असा अंदाज वर्तवण्यात येत आहे. देशात चंदीगडमध्ये रुग्णांवर रोगाचे औषध बॅक्टेरियम डब्ल्यूचा Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Is
Hello?
I'm audible?
Yes, please continue.
Okay. नॅशनल इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ व्हायरोलॉजीने भारत बायोटेकला व्हायरसचा एक स्ट्रेन ट्रान्सफर केलेला आहे. अमेरिकेतील कंपनी कोरिको यांनी असा दावा केलेला आहे की त्यांनी कोरोनावरची लस शोधलेली आहे. SIT 1499 ही अँटीबॉडी तयार केलेली आहे. भारतामध्ये पिरावीर यावरची CSR खासगी कंपन्यांसोबत समवेत काम करत आहे. भारतासारख्या प्रचंड लोकसंख्या असणाऱ्या देशात सामाजिक अंतराचे महत्त्व समजून घेण्यासाठी संशोधकांनी शेअर मॉडेलचा आधार घेतलेला आहे. AD5NCOV या लसीवरती चीनी कंपनी कॅसिनो बायोलॉजिकल्स मार्फत 16 मार्च पासून परीक्षण सुरू आहे. यानुसार ॲडिनो व्हायरस मानवी शरीरात सोडला जाईल. हा व्हायरस कोशिकांच्या प्रोटीनाला सक्रिय करेल. LVSMENPTC चीनच्या सिंजन इन्स्टिट्यूटमध्ये ही लस तयार केली जात आहे. HIV ला कारणीभूत असलेली लेंटी व्हायरसवर आधारित ही प्रतिकारशक्ती वाढवते. चीनच्या वुहान स्थित बायोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्ट इन्स्टिट्यूटमध्ये लस सुरू करण्याचे काम सुरू आहे. ही लस कोरोनाच्या जीन्समध्ये बदल करू शकते, त्यामुळे संक्रमणाचा धोका कमी ठरू शकेल असे संशोधकांना वाटते. CHAdOXL ही ऑक्सफर्ड युनिव्हर्सिटीमध्ये लस तयार होत आहे. अमेरिकेत बायोटेक्नॉलॉजी कंपनी मार्फत थेरापिटिक्सने केलेले आहे. अमेरिकेतील फार्मा कंपनी इनोव्या मार्फत लस तयार केली जात आहे. याद्वारे हा इंजेक्ट केला जातो. इस्रायलने कोरोनावरची लस तयार केली आहे असा दावा त्यांचे संरक्षण मंत्री नाफ्तुलो बेनेट यांनी केला. बेनेट यांनी निवेदनात म्हटलेले आहे की इस्रायल इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ बायोलॉजिकल रिसर्चच्या संस्थेने कोरोनावरची लस तयार केलेली आहे. अमेरिकेतील न्यूयॉर्क इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नॉलॉजी महाविद्यालयातील डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ बायो मेडिकल सायन्सच्या संशोधकांनी संशोधन केले आहे. त्यात त्यांना असे आढळून आले की क्षयरोगाच्या म्हणजे ट्युबरक्युलोसिस TB प्रतिबंध करणारी BCG लस लहानपणी देणाऱ्यांना कोरोनाचा धोका कमी असतो. डॉक्टर जोसेफ पेसिंजर यांच्या नेतृत्वाखालील आंतरराष्ट्रीय पथकाला SARS-CoV-2 या विषाणूचे पेशीरंध्र बंद करण्यात यश आलेले आहे. सेल या आंतरराष्ट्रीय शोध पत्रिकेमध्ये नुकताच हा शोध निबंध प्रकाशित झालेला आहे. कोरोनाच्या संसर्गासाठी मानवी पेशींमधील SE2 हे प्रथिने कारणीभूत असल्याचे स्पष्ट झाले. ह्युमन रिकॉम्बिनेट सोल्युबल एन्झाईम कन्व्हर्टिंग एन्झाईम 2 हे औषध प्रादुर्भाव रोखण्यासाठी प्रभावी ठरत असल्याचे शास्त्रज्ञांच्या लक्षात आलेले आहे. कोरोना व्हायरसमुळे रुग्णांच्या चवीत आणि गंध घेण्याच्या क्षमतेमध्ये बदल होत असल्याचे अभ्यासकांना दिसलेले आहे. काही रुग्णांमध्ये कोविड टोचचेही लक्षण आढळलेले आहे. स्पेनमधील जनरल काउन्सिल ऑफ ऑफिशियल कॉलेजेस ऑफ पोडियास्ट्रिक्टने प्रथमच या लक्षणांचा उल्लेख केलेला आहे. पोर्तुगालमध्ये झालेल्या एका अभ्यासानुसार 31% कोरोनाग्रस्तांमध्ये रक्ताच्या गाठी होण्याचे प्रमाण
1 minute remaining.
ओके मॅम अधिक असल्याचे दिसून आले. कॅनडातील वेस्टर्न ऑन्टॉलॉजी विद्यापीठात कृत्रिम बुद्धिमत्ता म्हणजेच एआयचा तंत्रज्ञान वापर करून कोरोना विषाणूचा जनिकीय आराखडा करण्याचे काम सध्या सुरू आहे. तसेच जगात लठ्ठपणा दर पाहता 25 पेक्षा अधिक BMI असणाऱ्या व्यक्तींना कोरोनाची लागून व्हायरस होण्याचे प्रमाण अधिक असल्याचे निष्कर्ष वर्ल्ड ओबेसिटी फेडरेशनने काढलेले आहे. कोरोना विषाणूचा संक्रमणाचा लवकरात लवकर छडा लावा यासाठी दक्षिण कोरियातील अमेरिकी लष्करी दळाने एक उपाय शोधलेला आहे. ते प्रत्येक व्यक्तीची स्मेल टेस्ट करण्यास सुरुवात केलेली आहे. एखाद्या माणसाच्या वास घेण्याच्या क्षमतेवरूनही कोरोना संक्रमणाचा प्राथमिक अंदाज करता येतो. आंतरराष्ट्रीय स्तरावरील वेगवेगळ्या संस्थांनी म्हटले की कोरोना बाधित व्यक्तीमध्ये गंध घेण्याची क्षमताही कमी होती. एकंदरीत मी हा तयार पेपर केलेला आहे आणि आता सारांश असा आहे की भारतामध्ये HIV औषधाची चाचणी करण्यात आलेली आहे. हैदराबादमधील बायोटेक लिमिटेड कंपनीमध्ये लस सुरू आहे आणि संशोधकांनी 13 मॉडेलचा आधार घेतलेला आहे आणि 6 लसींच्या वरती क्लिनिकल ट्रायल सुरू आहे. कोरोना व्हायरसमुळे रुग्णांच्या चवीमध्ये फरक पडतो. कोरोनाग्रस्तांमध्ये रक्ताच्या गाठी होण्याचे प्रमाण जास्त आहे आणि स्वीडनने हर्ड इम्युनिटी या प्रयोगाला यश असल्याचे दाखवून दिले.
Thank you, Mr. Saurabh. The second presenter for today is Ms. Mantal Devi. She is an extension lecturer at Government College Sampla, Haryana, India. And her paper title is Impact of COVID-19 Crisis on Industry. Ms. Mantal Devi, are you there? Ms. Mantal Devi. Okay, we move on to the third presenter. The third presenter for today is Professor Bhavna Shahzwani, Assistant Professor at Sant Hidaram Institute of Management, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. And her paper title is Impact of COVID-19 Trauma on Various Sectors in Indian Market.
Yes, ma'am, I'm there. Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, this is Professor Bhavna.
Yeah.
Can I start? Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, please allow me for the screen sharing.
Professor Bhavna, please start. Professor Bhavna, please start. Okay, I think she has some technical problem. So we'll start with the next presentation. The next presenter is Ms. Tamanna Mujawar. She's a postgraduate student of GVM's College of Commerce and Economics, Ponda, Goa, India. And her paper title is Impact of the COVID-19 Crisis on the Indian Agriculture. Ms. Tamanna, please start with your presentation.
Yes, good evening to all. My topic for research is, am I audible to all?
Yes, you're audible.
My topic for research is impact of COVID-19 crisis on Indian agriculture sector. Let me start with the introduction. COVID-19, the global pandemic, has brought India to its knees. Panic-stricken country has come to a screaming halt. Lockdowns, mandatory quarantines, home confinement, job losses, and economic woes. These have several impact on livelihoods. Disruptions disturbed the agriculture and food supply chain that in turn made farmers to experience huge losses. Adding to that, immense post-harvest losses due to shortage of laborers and transportation bottlenecks and price hikes due to panic buying and hoarding were observed. This paper discusses the impacts of COVID-19 on the local food system in India, followed by the collective approach by the national and state government, along with the private sector to protect the lives and the livelihood of the helpless groups in India. It is expected that these actions could encourage effective solutions for greater food security and food control in countries currently suffering from the pandemic and for India itself. So I'll start with the impact. The first noticeable hit of COVID-19 in the rural sector is on the agriculture supply chain. While the government has issued sanctions to trucks permitting them to take groceries, fruits and cereals, a hefty quantity of transporters are yet to obtain their consents. This had augmented the movement taken for the farm manufacturer to arrive at the market. On the other hand, there's a minor impact on the demand side as the restaurants have been regimented to close down for the dominant phase. This is grounding up an ample income loss to numerous farmers across states. As per an available report, the Railway Ministry recommends the cargo loading has curved in from a typical 10,000 cargo rakes per day to just about 3 to 4,000 now. As a result, the farmer has to put up for sale his crop at a lower price, reconciled with an inferior profit. The second shock of COVID-19 is the obstruction in sowing and yielding of crops due to the unavailability of goods such as seeds, tractors, ancillary support, medicines for crop fortification. Generally, this is the utmost time for brands from the aforesaid sectors to market their goods to the farmers. Even the e-commerce brands in agriculture have been impacted. Quotation of this merchandise has been bunched up and there is no inventory. The third impact of COVID-19 is the ordinary job cuts in the agriculture sector. As per the government, there are particularly 9 crore farmers all along with a related number landless agriculture laborers. While the farmer will be accepting assistance from the government, the latter is placed and in a complicated place at this time. So the MSME and SMEs, the comprise diminutive industry units, businesses, traders, and shops. The administer a civilized size inventory and employ abandoned direct and indirect employees. Post lockdown, their businesses are closed down and facing a revenue smack. They may have a lot let go of their workers for a diversity of reasons as well as financial feasibility, migration, well-being, and other. People rise to lose their
Miss
jobs, lacking
Tamanna,
a
last 1
comprehensive.
minute.
Okay. So I will tell you about the measures. The central and government has started by declaring assistance package for the farmers post COVID-19 to even the strike they had engaged throughout this period. Government has announced rupees 2,000 to farmers in the initial week of April beneath existing PM Kishan Yojana. They have bridged the load of EMIs for subsequently 3 months. And so, not taking much time, so I would like to conclude that on the whole, the COVID-19 epidemic is a vital stage in India's narration. The obvious threats from the rest of the world were supportive for the Indian administrators to take preparedness and restored measures as the right time to undertake the epidemic. The valiant and crucial control of the central as well as the state governments has executed notable strategies to defend the livelihood of millions. Beside with the government, enormous corporates and NGOs are in the forefront to make harmony to restrain the increase of the virus. Certainly, each Indian has taken the break the chain motto to their brains by staying home for a hopeful prospect further on to the further on for the complete globe. Clearly, the Indian government has taken huge steps to nourish the whole population and guard their lives and livelihoods in the midst of the coronavirus epidemic. Hopeful that this cloud also have a silver lining in redesigning the society's perspective for better food security and food domination, thus paving the technique to provision food systems. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you, Ms. Tamanna, for your presentation and for highlighting the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the farmers and also discussing the various government measures taken to revive the farming sector of India.
Thank you.
I now request Professor Bhavana Sajwani, if you are there, you can continue with your presentation.
Yeah, ma'am, I'm here. Ma'am, can I share my screen now?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Ma'am, I'm just waiting for the permission to get this, to start the screen. Yeah.
Ma'am, please start in the meanwhile.
Okay, so my topic is how the coronavirus has impacted the entire society with this. So we'll be talking about all the sectors. For example, education sector. We'll be working on how the market has impacted, how the Bollywood industry, or rather I should say entertainment industry, is impacted with this. How the travel and tourism, what it has left the impact on e-commerce as well. So if we talk about, just for a second. Yeah. So if we talk about health industry, so initially before COVID-19 actually, attacked India, it was, found that by 2020, India was expected to rank almost the top 3 health culture market in terms of incremental load. By 2020, the healthcare information technology market is expected to grow by 1.5 times from the current of $1 billion during 2015 to 2020. The patient market is expected to grow by 13% by compound annual growth rate. So, healthcare, but if I talk about the COVID-19, though the COVID-19 has impacted India, but it has also increased the market share of various pharmaceutical companies, as well as it has given the funds also, the government is also putting funds for the healthcare industry for betterment of the society. And if we talk about e-commerce, the online stores by after the COVID-19 had started providing this, facilities to all the population, but so that there can be zero interaction between the delivery guy and delivery boy and the person who has ordered it, due to which this has increased the sales of Grofers, Big Market, Domino's, Pizza Hut, and everything. The hand sanitizer market is also witnessing the exponential growth. From past few months, the demand of hand sanitizer has increased to 1400% from December 2019 to February 2020. For looking to these opportunities, many companies have grabbed and introduced the production of the products. Like we can talk about Dettol cleaners. They have also come up with the Kent vegetable cleaner. We all are seeing those advertisements these days. Himalaya soft hands, N95 mask. This is also giving the opportunity to e-commerce, to retail sales, so that retails, sector, so that they can work on their If I talk about automobile industry, of course, automobile industry is the industry where the huge investment is put forward, and all the small parts like are actually imported from China. They are imported from Spain. They are imported from South Korea. So this has impacted the production of automobile industry, due to which automobile supply chain India has been impacted by disruption in availability of auto parts, and the impact being felt across all the segments. If we talk about passenger vehicles, if we talk about two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or we talk about the four-wheelers, all electric vehicles, the large portion of component imported from China are sold in aftermarket, and it would also impact the aftermarket segments like service industry, the automobile service industry. They give the change and repairment. If we talk about IT sectors, we all are witnessing the huge cut down in salary packages as well as the employees of IT sector. Coronavirus is permanently shaking up the global outsourcing industry as lockdown from Bangalore to Manali. There will be 25 to 35 cutoff in salary of employees. This was the statement given by the one of the renowned, the chairperson of renowned IT sector industry. There will be the promotions, but there won't be any salary increments. Due to decline in e-commerce industry, also the employees from BPOs can also lose their job. Secondly, lastly, if I talk about education sector, yes, education sector.
Ma'am, you have 1 minute left.
Sure, ma'am. Since we all are directly or indirectly related to education sector, so this has actually impacted. I have been attending various webinars, so they are talking about this, that it will impact the job of faculties. But in my views, Indian education system is always linked to some soft touch, some close touch with your students. So for time being, we can shift on digital platform, but definitely in long run, education sector will come back into its form. Lastly, if I talk about suggestions to be given in market, as our Prime Minister Modi ji suggested that we can build a self-dependent country, a situation where local products will be built in local market only. This will help us to help our economic crisis. The developing of sustainable model for India that can help the employees in India only. Both central and state government should provide the unprecedented support to traders and farmers. If I talk about education sector, for time being, we can move to digital platform like Swayam, Byju's, Zoom meeting, Google Classroom, but in long run, the things can come into control. If I talk about public and private sector, HR person should work on job redesigning that can also help in health and safety, keeping in mind of this pandemic scenario. Marketing team should come up with new creative ideas that can focus in instilling the confidence in new customers. Research and development team should keep on working on ideas that can serve the potential customers. And lastly, I would conclude with my statement that India market is strong enough to face any kind of situation, just like it faced in 2013 inflation, and come out of this financial crisis. Soon it will become a global economy as the vision of our Prime Minister Modi ji. Thank you so much for patient listening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Bhavna, for your wonderful presentation and highlighting almost all the sectors like education, entertainment, e-commerce, tourism. And you have discussed both the positive as well as the negative effects of this pandemic, and you have suggested a lot many measures too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we move on to the next presentation. The next presenters are Neetu Sahajan, the first author, Akila Selvan, the second author, Vinita Raj Oika, the third author, and UK Hari Krishnanan, the co-author. The first three authors are MSW students of Department of Social Work, MES College, Kerala, and Hari Krishnan is a guest lecturer at Department of Social Work, MES College, Kerala, and their paper title is Reduce Vulnerability in Biological Disasters, Social Work Methods. I request any of the authors to please present your work. Any of the co-authors are present here? Neetu Sahajan, Akila Selvan, Vinita Raj, U. Hari Krishnan.
Any of the co-authors are present here. Neetu Sahajno, Akila Silvan, Vinita Raj, Q Hari Krishnan.
Okay.
Okay.
We move on to
We
the
move
next
on to
paper
the next
presentation.
presentation.
Mrs.
Mrs.
Valarmati
Valarmati
Selva Sundaram
Selva Sundaram
Tevar.
Tevar.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. The next paper presenter is Mrs. Valarmati Selva Sundaram Tevar from Viva College, Virar, Nalasopara, India. And the paper title is Automobile Industry and Environment. I request Ms. Valarmati to please present your work. Mrs. Valarmati, please present your work.
But Gina ma'am, if she's not responding, please go to the next presenter.
Okay. The next paper presenter for today is Dr. Caroline David from DTSS College of Commerce, India. And her paper title is Effect of Media on the Public During the Coronavirus Spread. I request Dr. Caroline David to start with the presentation. Ma'am, please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, ma'am.
But Gina ma'am, we can't hear her. Please, yeah. Please instruct her.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself. At the bottom of the screen, there is a unmute option. Please unmute of yourself.
Tell them there is a mic. Mic is there next to the video camera.
Ma'am, there is a mic next to the video camera. Please click on that.
Okay, Barjina ma'am, please go to the next presenter. Let her sort out her problem in the meanwhile.
Okay, sir. The next paper presenter is Dr. Sonal Pundi, Assistant Professor, Anand Engineering College, SGI, Agra, India. And her paper title is The Dazzling Side of COVID-19, A Step Towards New Era. I request Dr. Sonal Pundi to continue with the presentation. Dr. Sonal, you are there? Dr. Sonal Pundi.
But ma'am, please go to the next presenter. I think that person is
Okay,
not
sir.
there.
Okay. The next presenter is Miss Chelsea Zenevin Cardozo
Co-author Aarti Kumari Singh, MCom Part 2 students from Vidya Vikas Mandal, Sri Damodar College of Commerce and Economics, Margao, Goa, India. And the paper title is A Study on the Socio-Economic Implications of COVID-19 Pandemic. I request Ms. Chelsea Cardozo to start your presentation. Ms. Chelsea, start with your presentation. Ms. Chelsea Cardozo and Ms. Aarti Kumari Singh, please start with your presentation.
Marjina ma'am, please move on.
Yes. Okay, sir. The next paper presenter is Mr. Dilip C. Deshpande, a research scholar at Sri JJT University, Rajasthan, India. And his paper title is Impact of Lockdown on Asset Integrity Management for Process Plant Equipment Due to New Risk Scenario in India. So Dilip, please start with your presentation.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. The dignitaries and the participants and the scholars attending this conference. My name is Dilip Deshpande. I am the scholar from JJT University, Rajasthan, currently pursuing my research in the field of risk-based inspection in asset
Sir, you'll have to be
plants.
Slightly louder. You're almost not audible. Please be a little bit louder. Please come closer to your mic.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. Am I audible now?
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. My research topic for my PhD thesis is risk-based inspection for asset integrity management for process plant. And since we are currently in the lockdown, the related issues because of the lockdown on the risk-based inspection on asset integrity management are being covered in this particular research paper. Can I share my screen, please? Hello. Hello. Can you please allow me to share the screen?
You go for share option, sir. Share screen.
Yeah, I did that.
Yes, you are audible. You can speak.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Please continue with the presentation.
Yeah, the impact of lockdown on asset integrity management for process plant equipment due to new risk scenario is the subject for this particular paper. As we know that the lockdown has affected the life in a big way, the flights and the trains and the buses and the interstate or interdistrict or even the local travel is affected because of the curfew. And that really created many challenges for the process plant operations. We all know that the process plants are having very special features, such as it is a continuous process industry. It comes with huge investment, high risk involved in the operations. The raw material as well as the product transportation is on continuous basis. The role of the manpower is very critical. The role of the utility supply is also critical. And most of the actions that we have to take in these plants are very much time sensitive. When we look at the risk related to materials, we have the risk related to the spare parts, supply of the consumables, shipment of the special tools, personal protective equipment, and the spare parts or the materials which are required for repairs. Related to manpower, we have the issues related availability or the absenteeism of the inspection or NDT personnel, the travel restriction of the people, social distancing, mobilization of the additional personnel when required, or mobilization of experts. The machinery requires routine maintenance, in fact, periodic servicing as well. There are many scheduled repairs which are involved for the machinery. However, because of the lockdown, the industry has been facing many serious troubles because the people cannot be mobilized, the material equipment for performing the maintenance is methods or the services. The lockdown has also affected the scheduled inspection which were going to be performed in the plant, the non-destructive testing services, or the scheduled maintenance or the internal audit or the external audits as well. Other factors also have attached risk when it comes to the process plant operation. That may include integrity management, system modification, audit corrective actions, or the very important aspect is if the plant is to be shut down, then the process that is to be followed for that, or after the shutdown, when the plant is to be restarted, then the startup procedure for the restart. When it comes to asset integrity management, there are many areas which, if doesn't happen in time or doesn't happen properly, then it creates a threat to the condition of the equipment, not only the physical condition, but also the operating condition of the equipment. And the most probable effect of this particular situation is the failure of subcomponent or the equipment itself. And any such failure in the equipment operation or its physical condition results in the plant getting shut down, or if there is any accident, then it causes injuries, fatalities, and also damage to the environment. And that's the reason all the issues or all the risks which are created because of lockdown, directly or indirectly, they may, and many of the cases they do relate to the asset integrity management. So when we move forward, we see that there are many aspects that we can discuss. However, I respect the time limit which we have on this particular presentation. So I'll not take all that time. I'll just run through my slides, but I'll skip some of these slides and I'll come to the conclusion. One of the event that took place in Vizag a couple of weeks back was typically during the restart of the plant. And that particular example is good enough to tell us as to exactly how dangerous the situation can be if the startup is not handled properly. And the reason of that was again traced back to the non-availability of skilled manpower. Some unskilled person as a temporary labor who was brought in was asked to operate some of the equipment as reportedly the news came in. And because of that accident took place in which more than 10 people lost their lives and thousands of them suffered very badly. However, I must say that the Indian process industry has faced this challenge very bravely and technically and professionally. And we have seen that the government had announced the industry as essential industry. The industry kept the plants running, and most of the places, if not all, have succeeded in performing the plant operation safely without causing any damage to people, damage to equipment, or damage to the environment. So I will say that the risk management and the asset integrity management, both these aspects during this lockdown period have been very successfully handled by the Indian process industry. Thank you very much for patiently hearing this particular presentation. Thanks very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your presentation and highlighting the problems if the assets were not to be maintained in time because of the lockdown. The next paper presenter is Assistant Professor Snehal H. Borkar from Marathawada Mitra Mandal's College of Commerce, Pune, and it is co-authored by Assistant Professor Rasila Walekar, Anand Sahib Magar Vidyalay, Hatspar, India. And the paper title is Impact of COVID-19 Crisis on the Indian Tax System. I request Professor Snehal H. Borkar or Professor Rasila Walekar to start their presentation. Assistant Professor Snehal H. Borkar, you're there? I think they're not
Marjina
there.
ma'am, go on to the next presenter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please go on to the next presenter.
Dr. Carolyn David, are you there? Dr. Carolyn David.
Yeah, call on those two paper presenters of yesterday who are remaining.
Okay, sir.
Hello.
Dr. Rani.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear
Hello.
me? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Dr. Carolyn. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, doctor.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
can
Okay.
hear you.
Fine.
We can
Fine.
hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you. A very good
Yeah,
afternoon to the dignitaries, the organizing college, the organizing team, and my dear audience friends. Since the lockdown, I'm glued to the news from different channels, and I just keep switching over to different channels and trying to hear the news. And gradually, I got into depression. Then it was until and unless my son, he told me, Mama, what are you doing? Why are you listening to the news? News will really, if it's a small thing, they'll make a mountain out of a mole. And after a few days, I decided, okay, fine. I won't listen to the news. I'll get into, and I got very busy into these webinars and conferences and writing papers. Okay, fine. But then I switched over to Facebook. When I switched over to Facebook, I could see all different pictures of people who are very serious and who are on the deathbeds. Oh God, these things disturbed me. And I really didn't know what to do. I was just thinking, what is going on? What is the media doing? And that is the reason I decided to write on effects of media on the public during the coronavirus. Sorry. The reason I've written on it is, according to me, media is a voice. It's a voice of the people. It's a link between the people and the government. But actually, today the media is all out to impress itself. If they get a small topic like the happening in Palgar, the two sadhus were beaten up. Yes, it was very pathetic. It was very sad, but it went on, and they were screaming and yelling, and what they were trying to actually do, they didn't realize it. In the same way with coronavirus, they keep on talking about the deaths in this country. This one died. They show coffins, this, that, and all. In fact, I think the media is a big support to the public. A media should be a voice which will, a link that will connect the voice of the poor people to the government. There is so much the media can do for the people. The media can really have a very, very, very positive impact on the people. It can teach, of course, it is teaching, but it does not focus on that. Like it has taught the people in how to use masks. It has taught the people how to use gloves, how to sanitize themselves. There are so many things it has taught. But then they should keep on talking about good things. How somebody has got well by using this. Vitamins are important. You have vitamin C. You have, what is that, zinc tablets. All these things, these should be told by media. Media should also talk about the good happenings that are happening, the progress that is taking place. Stop highlighting on only deaths. It really spoils your mental balance. Media has got so many things. Media has a power. Media is influential. Media controls it controls the public. It controls the government. But what is media doing as of today? If you just open your news channel, you'll see them screaming, yelling, talking on top of the voice. And what about the migrants? Migrants, they don't talk about them as much. It is only on WhatsApp we come to know that, this migrant while traveling, they were beaten, and the police have beaten them so badly and they are jailed, and the media is doing nothing about it. How can the migrants be beaten up? Media has to voice out to the government. This is injustice. The lockdown was not informed to us. We were not given a notice period at all. At least we middle class, we can manage so many things. But what about the migrants, the informal sector, the poor people? They, at such a short notice of ours, how could they stock themselves with food? How could they
Ma'am,
liquidate
1 minute
how could
left.
they arrange for money? There are so many things the media can inform the government. The media should keep talking positive things. The youth is getting affected. Like today, my son was sitting and just waiting to listen to the news. Has the lockdown been called off? And then he came and very sadly told me, Mama, the lockdown is not called off. Another 1 month, I have to stay in the house. What is this going on? And okay, for these things have to be informed. but there are many things the media can do for the public. It can do for the migrants. It can do for the poor people. It should go to remote areas, find out whether the food is actually reaching them, whether the money is actually reaching them. So many things are spoken of by the government that this money is gone here, this food supply. It is only the upper middle class and the middle class who's actually doing it. It is not the government. Very few places, yes, the government is doing it and then they click pictures and the media shows it. But this is not what the
Ma'am,
media
please
is for.
conclude.
Pardon? Oh, you want me to conclude? Okay. All I can say is, I think the media should now become the voice of the poor people and try to do something for them. With this, Dr. Caroline David from DTSS College of Commerce expresses a gratitude to one and all, and thank you for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for bringing out the role that the media can play during this crisis. The next paper presenter is Dr. Rani Sushmita, principal of BSBSB School, and the paper title is Impact of COVID-19 on Local Economies, a qualitative study on changing dynamics of local businesses. I request Dr. Rani Sushmita to go ahead with the presentation. Dr. Rani Sushmita, you're there?
Next time,
Okay, we move on to the next paper presenter, Shiva Kumar A, Assistant Professor in Commerce, Sri Nilakanta Government Sanskrit College of Kerala. It is co-authored by Dr. N. Shanmugam, Assistant Professor of Commerce, Government Arts College, Tamil Nadu. And the paper title is Economics of COVID-19, Perspectives from India. I request Shiva Kumar to please go ahead with your presentation. Mr. Shiva Kumar, you're there?
Marjina ma'am, please announce if anybody who has missed their presentation, they want to present, they can present.
Participants, any of the presenters who were unable to present your work, if you are there, please raise
Sir,
your
ask them
hand.
to raise their hands. Ask them to raise their hands.
Yeah, please raise your hands. We'll give you a chance to present. Mr. Mehul Rathod. Mr. Mehul Rathod, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can go ahead with your presentation.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, sir. Start your presentation.
Audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes, you're audible. Please start.
Okay, thank you. So, myself, Mehul Rathod from Gujarat, and my topic is impact of the COVID-19 on the educational method. First of all, hello, ma'am, audible?
Yes,
Hello?
sir, you're audible.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, continue. So the 21st century has been rightly termed we use as the digital era. Today, all children are growing up in a very difficult world than that of their parents and relatives. For example, television, cell phone, computers are there. By this equipment, our students makes smarter and smarter day by day. For this, we all educational thinker go with better educational method in this COVID-19 time. My topic is also related to the educational method. For this, we discuss about online teaching, how we introduce in our system. We also think about digital platform in the world that used by teachers and technical expert and all. In our country, what possibility made by the government and educational expert for online teaching. So all these points we discuss in this paper. Uh, right now, the COVID-19 crisis in all over the world affected in all departments. Especially here we discuss about in educational and in educational method. There are lots of change in the educational method. Our traditional classroom changed into the online classroom. Let's see the effect of COVID-19 in educational method. So, especially in educational, all university, all school, all institutes across India and the world to suspend physical classroom to shift online classroom. The 21st century, as we know, is technological century, and this technology is produced from our education. But today we use this technology to transform education in online mode. The university and teachers agreed that their transition to online teaching had not been very difficult. However, if the lockdown continued over a longer period, some investment in infrastructure and additional training for teachers and students would be required. Re- would be required. Now, online teaching have done in two ways. First is recorded classes, and second one is live classes. The recorded classes, which when open out to public, is referred to as massive open online course. The second one is via live online classes conduct as webinar or Zoom or Google Meets or in WebEx, etc. Personal blog, personal YouTube channel, whatever we use, we understand this to be in simple manner. So, uh, so the different type of platforms on online classes, which is related to our educational method, there are many platforms created to enable education, online education in India. These are supported by Ministry of Human Resource and Development, MHRD, the National Council of Educational Research and Training, NCRT, and the Department of Technical Education. There are also initiatives like e-page Pathshala, e-content, SWAYAM online course for teacher, and NEAT, enhancing employability. Other online platform aims to increase connectivity to content. These are utilized for course material and classes and running of online module. They include the National Program on Technology, NPTEL, National Knowledge Network, NKN,
Sir,
and
1 minute left.
Okay, ma'am. Country. So the finally, some other problems are problem with online classes also there. Well, technology is enabling, it can also be limiting, especially in India, where basic access is a challenging. Not every student has computer or fast streaming internet at home. This led to issue with attendance and participant in online session. A survey by IIT Kanpur revealed that the 9.3% of its 2,789 students were not able to download material sent by the institute or study online. So these are the basic problem in our classing. So the final conclusion, that many feel that online education is not easy as speaking into the microphone at one and connecting laptop or phone and listening in on the other hand. There are other challenges with this form of educational which are faced at both ends of the spectrum. But we are all in this position that we cannot do anything and accept this educational method for school and university also. See, all this matter take advantage and disadvantage with us, but we accept it and do well for our better future. So must go on. So thank you, madam, for giving the opportunity. Thanks all.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for highlighting the impact of this COVID crisis on the education sector and bringing out the advantages and disadvantages of online teaching. Any other presenter remaining to present their work, please raise your hand. Anyone else remaining to present your work, please raise your hand. No one else. So we conclude with the paper presentations. And I would like to thank all the paper presenters for their wonderful presentations covering impact on agriculture, industry, the role of media, impact on education, asset management, and almost all the sectors we covered. Thank you once again, all the presenters, for your presentations. Have a good evening.
On behalf of Damodar College of Commerce and Economics, Margao, collaborators, Creative Academy, the management of Vidya Vikas Mandal, my principal, Dr. Preeta Malya. I thank each and every resource person who spent time to give us their valuable thoughts. I thank all the paper presenters once again for their papers and for participating in this conference. I thank all the members of the audience who were very patient and very sportingly listened to all the paper presenters. I also thank all those who asked questions. I thank all my colleagues from Damodar College, from Pune College. I thank my principal for her full cooperation. I especially thank Professor Dr. Anwar Sheikh, Mirza sir, and his whole team for their very able support. Now to the participants, you will receive a link for the feedback tomorrow before 5 p.m. So please fill in and submit, and all participants will get their certificates. Okay, please don't panic. There is some technical hitch. That's why you won't get the feedback link today. You'll get it by tomorrow 5 p.m. Okay, thank you very much once again. God bless. Yes, ma'am, please take over.
Thank you all the participants. Thank you for being with us for 3 days. And we'll inform you all about the next conference and next webinar. Thank you all of you all.